Excuse me, do you work here?
Hi, yes. How can I help you today?
Yeah, I was trying to place a popcorn order on the app, and it's not letting me for some reason.
Yeah, sorry. Our popcorn machine's a little broken.
Oh, I think I can help you out with that.
Thanks. You fixed it.
Yeah, you're welcome.
You did pretty good. You want some of this?
Oh, awesome. What about some M&Ms?
I think we're out of those too.
What?
What is going on, everybody? Welcome to Tavern Talk. I am Philip, and joining me this week, Mr. Trent Reese. How are you doing?
Doing all right.
Good. Thank you for being here, for joining me, for taking the time to do this.
Thank you for inviting me. This was awesome.
Well, and thank you for being so willing in that intro. Like,
I'm ready for my Oscar.
Yeah, you should be. It was a great performance. It's solid. Straight fire, if you will. You know what I'm saying?
Someone's got to bring it.
You love me. You really love me.
Trent hosts a podcast, Nightmare on Fear Street.
Right.
So very horror-centric.
Very horror-centric. Okay. Everything horror.
Well, that's great. I mean, I've known about the podcast for a little bit, and so I've been waiting for kind of, a slasher, scary, horror, paranormal movie to invite you onto. So I'm glad we're finally here.
Yes.
And this week we're talking Firestarter. And so I also kind of feel like I need to apologize up front as well. But we just came out of seeing Firestarter. This is a remake of the 1984 film. It's based on a Stephen King novel, same name, all that good stuff. But I actually don't know how you feel about it, so maybe not. But as you guys might know, the bit on here is that we just walked out of the theater. We just saw 2022's Firestarter. So what is your initial reaction to it?
I liked it better than the original.
Okay.
I think the remake fixes some issues I had with the original. I just think it's really difficult to translate Stephen King to the film. I think when it works really well, it's amazing.
Right.
But when it doesn't work, it just can be a little clunky. But I didn't hate it. I think it was enjoyable enough.
Have you read the novel it's based on?
I have not read this one, no.
Well, because I just watched the 1984 version in preparation for this. So the differences are pretty drastic and like they're fresh on the brain. And so I was like, oh, wow. So I'm wondering which one might be more faithful to the source material.
I am too, because there's a whole the plot in the original movie.
Yeah.
Takes a whole other turn. Like the climax is not even what it is.
No, it feels like they cut out 40 minutes in this new one. And I think this one is. I think the original was closer to 2 hours, and this is like a solid 90 minutes.
Yeah. Which if you listen to the podcast, our magic time is 90 minutes. If you're going to keep me over, you better give me something to keep me there.
It's a sweet spot. It is. And the only thing was with this one is even though it is 90 minutes, and as we got to the third act, I was kind of like, oh, this is going to be it.
Yeah.
But in the middle, I was like, God, what are we doing?
Right.
I was feeling that drag, even though it was only felt very condensed, but at the same time was kind of drug out as well. And so I was just like, what are they doing? Should mention this was written by Scott Teems. He wrote a movie a while ago, wrote and directed, I think, called That Evening Sun with Hal Holbrook. It was a small movie, but since then he's kind of graduated to Blumhouse, I guess, working pretty consistently. He helped David Gordon Green on Halloween Kills. They also brought in John Carpenter and his son and the same team that composed the score for the new Halloween movies.
I want to say the score is really effective. It's probably the most effective thing in this film.
Yeah, and they really rely on it a lot. Mm-hmm. And I also want to say, I don't know how ironic it is, but the original movie's score was done by Tangerine Dream. And that was maybe like the best thing about that movie too.
Right.
Like it's really good. And I was like, oh, this is awesome. Like I'm going to go listen to this in my free time. I'll never rewatch the movie, but I like the soundtrack or the score. So yeah, no, I was glad you brought that up. Yeah, and this one was directed by a guy named Keith Thomas. I'm not very familiar with his work. I think he did a horror film a couple years ago called The Vigil, which I have not seen.
I feel like I heard of it, but I've never seen it.
I was gonna say maybe you guys touched on it, maybe not. No. But it just kind of feels like, with this being kind of a universal Blumhouse production, they, see the potential with the Halloween franchise, combined with kind of like the Stranger Things phenomenon, even though that's kind of
I did kind of see some Stranger Things in here, even though I couldn't tell just the time setting, the time period. I mean, it felt in a lot of places like this was modern day. Right. But then there was also a lot of places where it didn't feel like that. It kind of felt like where the original film was set in the 80s, because it was made in the 80s. But so that kind of confused me a little bit, but
it almost felt like the talk of Wi-Fi and cell phones and everything was like to explicitly signal like this is present day,
right?
And we are figuring out how for this story to adjust to present day with everybody just being more visible in terms of.
But then they're playing dodgeball, and I know a lot of like elementaries have banned that game because of what we see happen in this movie.
Right. And I was like, is nobody going to get onto this little punk kid? Like he does it like 2 scenes in a row.
Oh my gosh.
And I was like, somebody tell this kid off. Like it was terrible. And that maybe kind of speaks to like the larger issue I had just with the movie, is that it just feels so kind of passive in a way. Like it's like, I don't know, like maybe this is just a paycheck job for most of this crew or whatever, but it's just like the heart really isn't in this too much.
Right. I will say the acting I didn't have a ton of problems with. Yeah. I thought they did the best they could with what they were given. Zac Efron really kind of impressed me in this, because I've never seen him in this like fatherly.
I was going to say, how did you feel about Zac Efron as a dad?
I felt very strange to go from like High School Musical and Hairspray to
And I'm late.
Like, now I'm father.
right. And he's got a almost teenage girl. Right. Yeah, it's crazy.
But some of the writing was just really clunky in places. Yeah, especially the doctor's dialogue at times felt really contrived, and I couldn't really tell what they were. I didn't know what the point was. Right. What is the story you're telling me, and how do these characters fit inside of that? The one thing I did like about the writing and the plot that they did use that they didn't really touch on in the original is I like that we got more interaction with the parents. Yeah. I got to see that their story with their own powers and with their struggles and all that kind of stuff. Before in the original, you just jump to they're on the run. You know?
The entire original movie is just a movie about these two people on the run trying to escape. And this one, like I said, and that may be where the pacing expectation changed for me, is that this one does take its time to set up and give context to the parents, to the powers, where they came from. And even with one thing I did like as well was with the little girl, they deal with or at least spend a little bit more time on like the repercussions of this power she has, and how it is, a burden to her and, her life, and she's never going to be able to live a normal life and all this stuff. But also how it affects not just her family, but anyone she comes into contact with or gets frustrated with. Right. And I did like that it spent a little more time on that, because in the original it was just like, Drew Barrymore, you got to deal with this. Right. You and your 8-year-old self just like take it as it is, and she just kind of does. But this one,
right. And I like that they see. I'm curious how you feel about this. I feel in both of these situations, both of the films, I feel like it would have been scarier to see Charlie 10 years after this.
Yeah, right.
Like, what are the repercussions to this? Like, I almost think if there were, I don't think there should be or will be, but if there were going to be a sequel to this film, I think it would be even scarier than this movie, because you see the chaotic, in this, you see the beginnings of the chaos that she can bring. And so I think that maybe that's a missed opportunity from the writers, or maybe Stephen King. Again, I haven't read the novel, so I don't know.
I really want to know which one more strictly follows that source material, because like you have that one scene with the dad from that 70s show.
You want to use her.
And he's the doctor who invented the serum that kind of created her. And you get his point of view on it, and you get him saying,
she may be capable of a nuclear explosion.
And so it's like, that's kind of the catalyst for, this government agency deciding what they need to do with this child once they capture her.
But then that scene felt really like shoved in to get that, because they don't do anything with his character after that.
Right, no.
You never see him again. He
I know.
Just stays in this nursing home, I guess. I don't know.
He was like, no, I don't accept your
I'll
offer.
play with my pixie sticks. We're good.
Right? So many odd little choices. And the odd little choices too, like when it comes to Charlie's kills. Some of them just were so abrupt, I couldn't help but chuckle at it. And it's like, because some of them, there is a thing, Zac Efron is you gotta learn to control it. It has to be a decision and not just a reaction. And which, great, that's kind of where you want it to head.
Right.
But every now and then it's it's as easy for her to do this as or accidentally as if she were to sneeze or something.
Right.
And it just, whoa, sorry. Yeah.
And you're charbroiled.
Right. And I was and some of it's pretty brutal.
Some of the gore in this movie is much better. I mean, of course, there's better technology today, but some of the gore in this movie, there's one scene, which I'm sure you're thinking of too, that I'm just oh, ow.
Right. Yeah. And that's the thing too, it is gory and gross, and there are elements that are disturbing, but I don't think I was scared by any of it, which is, again, you're based on a Stephen King novel. At least in the original, there was some hint of eeriness in the tone, especially again with that score. And the score, again, they rely on it heavily here because that is their main source of tone setting.
Right.
But yeah, I was not even any cheap jump scares got me or anything that. So,
yeah. And I'm a sucker for a jump scare.
Yeah.
They get me. I don't know why. Even though I've seen a movie 30 times, and that jump scare will still get me. But yeah, there wasn't. It's not. This feels more like a sci-fi adventure than it does a horror. Trying to be a horror film.
Definitely.
Which, I mean, I'm not one of those people that's sci-fi can't be horror and blah, blah, blah. I think that we can have, horror comedies, horror dramas, horror sci-fi. There's, Alien has its place.
Oh, God!
Right.
But, this just didn't... I don't think the filmmakers set out to scare me.
No, yeah, this is strictly it feels hey, Stranger Things is big, superhero movies are big, this is a good property that is an IP. Stephen King's pretty solid right now still. It was seen as an opportunity, and I think they gathered a team that they were kind of familiar with that had worked on other stuff.
And they added some more things to some characters that weren't in the original, some depth to the man that picks them up and takes them back to his house. There was more depth to that character in that situation that he's in. But then they leave some characters completely flat, even more flat than they think they were in the original, the janitor that they reactivate to hunt them down.
Is his codename Rainbird or something?
I think
that?
So, yeah, that sounds right. He had no, and at least in the original, he had conflict in what he was doing, and
a huge part.
Yeah,
huge. I was kind of looking forward to what they were going to do with that, and it just isn't there at all.
No, and I don't think they knew what their climax of this film was.
Right.
I mean, I think that it's pretty obvious what they tried to make it be. The stakes just aren't there because you've given me a flat, ride.
Yeah, that what we were talking about in that first one with that relationship building between Charlie and Rainbird, really added to the tension in those final moments. Because by the time that third act climax happens, and it's this is what has to happen to end the movie, is kind of the big moment, the be all and all, what we've been waiting for. And it just falls flat, like you said, because there is no investment in it whatsoever. But
then part of me feels like they wanted to make Charlie the villain. And if you want to make Charlie the villain, which is an interesting choice, you've got to make that choice.
What
and
did you
fully
think of
dive into it?
The child actor?
I thought she was good. I mean, they give her more dialogue than they gave poor little Drew Barrymore.
Please don't make me do anything.
I love Drew Barrymore. There's no shade to Drew Barrymore
You liar.
today, but they gave her no script.
She just breathes heavily a lot.
Right.
And
had a wind machine.
What
That's
was
about
it? That one line, back off maybe, or something like that. Yeah, it's a lot. But no, okay. Well, on that enthusiastic note, on Tavern Talk, we do out of 5-star ratings, and obviously we just walked out of seeing this movie, so this is an initial reaction rating. But what would your star rating be for this year's Firestarter?
Initial, I think there's enough in it for me to give it 2.5.
Yeah,
Right in the middle, somewhere. Yeah.
No, I mean, I'm not too. I was going to give it 2.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not great. I can't even decide which one I like more, which interpretation of it, because there are elements of both that work and others that just don't work at all for both of these. And so I'm gonna go 2. Should also mention, obviously, if you have a movie tavern near you and are interested in this remake, certainly venture out to a movie tavern and see it. We appreciate them letting us see the movie here, shoot the show here. Always. But we should note this is going to be streaming on Peacock day and date on May 13th as well. So, if there's a little interest but not 100% sure that this is something you want to see, maybe check it out there first. But so it just, and that, even mentioning that feels like it just kind of deflates the whole energy of the room.
I don't know
what
Blumhouse is thinking sometimes because they've made some great horror films. Don't get me wrong, but they've made some clunkers.
It is, it's about as wide a spectrum as a Netflix movie. So
100%, maybe, probably right on. That's a good comparison.
It could go anywhere. It just depends on who's attached.
You're right.
All right. Well, thank you, Trent, so much for doing this. I really, really appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and thank you guys for watching. If you haven't already, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button. That helps. We try to put up a new video, a new review of the biggest release every week. So doing that stuff always helps the visibility on these. But thank you guys once again. Thank you, Trent.
Thank you.
And we'll see you guys next time. Peace.